Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Head of Enterprise Strategy for AWS, Stephen Orban.
Good morning, San Francisco, and thank you for spending time with us today. I'm especially grateful that you're all here after having just spent 8 days in Disney World with 4 princesses under the age of 7. I'm definitely ready to start my vacation with you this morning. My name is Stephen Orban, and I joined AWS last year to help our enterprise customers understand and accelerate the benefits that they can get from cloud computing. Like all of our events, today's summit is much more of a learning and development experience than it is a sales and marketing conference. Today we'll hold several sessions for those of you with all levels of experience, and our goal is to have everybody leave here today with a much better understanding of how AWS can help you deliver results for your business. In addition to these sessions, I'd encourage you to spend some time today networking and learning from your peers who are here in the room. There are over 100 enterprises represented here today, many of whom are using technology in some pretty amazing ways to transform their business. The explosion in cloud adoption is one of the main reasons that I decided to dedicate this next chapter of my career to it, and I continue to be amazed with how fast the community has grown. If you're just getting started with the cloud, there's no time like the present. The community certainly wasn't this big when I got started using AWS at Dow Jones in 2012. So if you think about enterprise IT today, it tends to have well-established and sometimes functional storage systems, compute virtualization, network topologies, and governance models that all need to be thought about in a slightly different way in a world where there's infinitely scalable and globally available IT resources. As more companies realize this, they're also beginning to understand that running their own infrastructure typically doesn't help them meet their goals. Today, we hope to help you understand how the cloud can help you meet your objectives at a pace that you're comfortable with, that will accelerate over time, and that will allow you to take advantage of your existing investments. First, a little bit about my background. I started my career as a developer at Bloomberg, and over the first 7 years of my tenure there, I held a variety of positions across their equity and messaging platform. And then in 2008, when the markets took a nosedive, Bloomberg found themselves in this very uncomfortable position where they were going from 30 to 40% year-over-year growth to negative to flat growth, and several of their high-profile customers had ended up declaring bankruptcy. So the company ended up funding a lot of new initiatives to drive new revenue streams into the company. And I got together with a handful of people I had worked with in the past, and we had this hypothesis that if we treated a professional athlete like an equity and a professional sports team like a portfolio, we could build a business using the similar analytics that Bloomberg had brought to the financial markets on top of the rich sets of data that's collected in professional sports to help professional sports teams manage their operations. Turns out we were right, and we built a nice business around that over the years that followed. And Bloomberg made 15 or 16 such similar investments over the course of the next 3 years. Bloomberg Wealth, Bloomberg Law, Bloomberg Government, Bloomberg Real Estate. We acquired BusinessWeek.com. And what we found was that operating infrastructure and procuring and deploying infrastructure for a mature business like the Bloomberg Terminal is not the way that you should operate businesses that you don't know if are even going to be around in 6 months. And we found that we were spending many, many millions of dollars on infrastructure and making all of these businesses a far less attractive investment than they should have been. So in 2011, I was asked to do something about this, and we developed a private cloud to create some efficiencies across all these different business lines. And on one hand, we made the cost much more attractive to each business, but on the other, we still had far less features and were moving much more slowly than if we were able to take advantage of the pace of innovation that AWS had achieved at that time. All of my customers, who were the CTOs of these different business units, were still relatively unhappy. Everyone felt that we would be more nimble if we were using best-in-class tools that were available and devoting the resources who were now developing this private cloud to product development instead. I realized that I would never be able to keep up with commercial vendors and resigned to the idea that developing a private cloud is not a good use of company resources. So when I became the CIO of Dow Jones in 2012, I knew not to make the same mistake. So many of my experiences at Dow Jones will be detailed throughout the course of this presentation. But I'll start by saying that last year, I had a moment of clarity. This whole cloud thing is inevitable. It became so obvious to me that companies should not be spending their scarce resources on activities like managing infrastructure that don't drive revenue. In 2012, when we started our cloud journey, we had an awful lot of skeptics, both internally and externally, who thought that we were crazy for trying to use cloud in a serious way for our business. We not only proved them wrong, but surpassed our own expectations. What we were able to accomplish using AWS was nothing short of transformational. We went from 70% of our resources focused on IT operations to 70% of our resources focused on product development, while lowering and cutting my budget each year and delivering more than we ever had before. I certainly won't stand here and claim that things were perfect, because they definitely weren't, but they were definitely a lot better than they had been before. So now I feel like I have the best job in the world. I get to take my experiences transforming IT using AWS, combine them with the experiences of other enterprises who are doing the same thing, and help IT executives all over the world be successful in transforming their business. So what I'm seeing is that as every company unlocks the value that cloud has to offer, they find themselves having to answer one very important question. What if you could devote 30% more of your resources to your customers? I'd like everybody to think about this for a minute. Now, this is going to be different depending on the role that you're in, whether you're an individual contributor, a manager, or an executive. But it is often the key component that propels companies to further their cloud adoption. So I'd like everybody to keep this in mind as we move through the presentation this morning. And as it becomes clear how you're going to be able to realize this benefit, you're going to need to think about how best to allocate, whether it be your resources, your time, or your investment, back into your business. So when I was a CIO, I tended to look at my department as having 5 distinct parts. I was always tweaking my department and moving things around to best meet the needs of the business, but I always came back to this view when thinking about how to optimally split responsibilities across a large IT footprint. So you have business applications, which are the applications that drive revenue into your company. Those could be digital products, brand websites, mobile apps, e-commerce, etc. Corporate applications, otherwise known as back office, which is your email, productivity, ERP and finance, HR, legal systems. You have end user computing, which generally consists of device management, mobile device management, IT support, desktop management. And then underneath all that, you have infrastructure that's generally supporting all 3 of these different parts. So that includes things like your data center, server, storage. And then information security, which of course sits between and throughout everything that we do in our IT departments. So let's think for a moment why infrastructure is so commonly centralized in enterprise IT. My point of view on this is that because it's expensive, it's slow, it requires a great deal of expertise, and historically it's been easier to abstract these complexities away from the other 3 parts that depend on them, because it's really hard to do well at scale. But now think about where your customer is wanting you spending your time. Think about where your executive team wants you spending your time. I hope that answer is in growing and improving your business. All of these other areas are very important, and not doing them well can certainly hurt your business, but doing it marginally better than the competition is not likely to materially improve the results for your business. So Jeff Bezos, Amazon's founder and CEO, often talks about in business how it's useful to think about the things that are constant. Everyone always talks about the things that change, like technology, but you don't often hear the business community talk about the things that don't change. And when you hear Jeff talk about some of the customer obsession philosophies that have made Amazon.com so successful over the last decade and a half, he'll talk about how it's impossible to imagine a future where customers on Amazon.com want to pay more for their products. Right? It's impossible to imagine a future where customers on Amazon.com are going to want their items delivered to them more slowly. So we think about this the same way at AWS. What are the chances that your customers come to you and ask you to spend more time building your infrastructure rather than the products that they pay you for? What are the chances that your CEO comes to you and asks you to deliver features more slowly because he'd like you to spend more time managing your data centers? I think it's impossible to imagine a future where you're having these kind of conversations. So AWS has innovated so quickly over the last several years that we now have solutions that cut across every single part of IT. Our early services were well suited for infrastructure and security, and as over the last several years, AWS has helped companies become more efficient in these parts, we've also learned that many companies still feel that they spend too much time on the undifferentiated heavy lifting across other parts of IT. So through listening to these customers, AWS has developed a number of solutions that address these parts. In the corporate application space, WorkDocs will let you share files across your organization. WorkMail is a secure, Exchange-compatible mail server in the cloud that allows you to control where your content will reside. And end-user computing workspaces will allow you to manage desktops for your workforce in the cloud. Imagine a world where desktop support and desk-side support can be run entirely remote. And with a click of a button, a worker and your staff can get a more powerful desktop for just a few dollars a month. As we continue to innovate in the information security space to provide you with the most trusted and secure cloud platform, we are continuing to add features like the AWS Key Management Service and certifications that make it easier for you to meet your security and compliance needs. On top of this, the AWS Marketplace has thousands of solutions across every part of IT. We've taken the same concept that's helped Amazon.com exponentially scale out their product inventory and have allowed technology vendors to sell their AWS-compatible solutions in the marketplace. This gives our customers, and in this case you, a broad selection of solutions that they can deploy in seconds into their infrastructure. Nowhere else can you find an inventory of IT solutions this large, all of which can be procured in the same way that you consume AWS services today, greatly simplifying often bureaucratic procurement processes. Also coming very soon, which you may hear a little bit about later today, is the AWS Service Catalog, which will allow IT administrators to manage what services and applications can be consumed by the rest of the organization. This will allow you to maintain standards and controls across a large distributed workforce. And in addition to the services that we offer, a number of credible IT vendors, enterprise IT vendors, are now developing cloud-based offerings, sometimes on our platform, that are helping organizations focus more on what matters most to their business. We think that this growing ecosystem is great for the industry because it gives companies the muscle memory to learn how to adopt cloud solutions into their businesses. And it also is good for us because it keeps us hungry to innovate on your behalf. So what I hope that this picture illustrates is that AWS can help make your entire IT organization more effective. It means that you can start taking advantage of what cloud has to offer anywhere. It could be driven by the needs of your business at that time. Chances are that once you start to realize the benefits in one part of IT, you'll be able to leverage that experience and effectively use it in other parts over time. So we've seen this now happen in a wide variety of customers, many of whom have long-standing legacy IT organizations. In the media space, my alma mater, Dow Jones and News Corp, are in the process of migrating 50 data centers to the cloud and completely reimagining their IT. Condé Nast, New York Times, and Hearst are following the same path. And healthcare, Johnson & Johnson is using workspaces to enable tens of thousands of contract workers to work in their environment without having to manage the devices. Merck is using us to operate DevOps and infrastructure across a growing number of their business units. In the travel industry, Qantas is using AWS to dynamically compute flight routing and improve their customer loyalty programs. The weather company is processing billions of weather events every day and then sending that off to their millions of customers all around the world. And financial services, Suncorp in Australia is using us in a big way to move all of their IT to the cloud. And when it comes down to it, every imaginable business segment is using AWS in a very meaningful way. We also have a pretty large public sector business. There's more than 900 government agencies around the world who are using AWS to quickly manage and procure their IT assets, as well as reduce deployment time and costs by several orders of magnitude. Many government agencies are enjoying the benefit of having a common infrastructure across departments so that they can benefit from a larger community. The AWS Marketplace is allowing them to collaborate with packaged solutions across departments and consume solutions from thousands of technology providers all through AWS, which again drastically reduces their burden for procurement. In addition, there are more than 3,600 educational institutions who are not only starting to use AWS for their IT, but many are also starting to use it in their curriculums as students are more and more beginning to use AWS to develop their projects faster and hone their development skills much more quickly. So this will be slightly different for every organization, but this is the trend that we're seeing in the organizations that do this well and go on to becoming cloud-first companies. End-user computing and corporate applications need to rely less and less on the infrastructure as the solutions that powers their business are run in the cloud. This is allowing these organizations to focus on optimizing the business processes associated with these services and functions rather than the infrastructure that supports it. DevOps, or some other aptly named cloud center of excellence, emerges as a much more cost-effective and agile way to provide best practices, automation, and governance throughout all of IT. This transition is what frees up these precious resources to work on what matters most to your customers, the applications that drive your business. I'd once again encourage everybody to ask themselves, what would you do if you had more resources to devote to your business? What would this mean for your customers? I've had the opportunity now over the last several months to talk to CIOs from all over the world, and this is what many of them at the end of the day are really after. Yes, the cloud can save you money. Yes, it can help you deploy your applications faster. Yes, it can give you a global reach. Yes, it can make you more secure. But at the end of the day, what AWS brings to large and established organization is the freedom from the undifferentiated heavy lifting that is traditionally associated with all of enterprise IT. So the question then becomes, how? What is it that you need to do to get from the traditional enterprise IT map to the IT map of tomorrow? So getting there is a journey, and that's going to be at the heart of the rest of our discussion this morning. This is not something that's going to happen overnight. It's an iterative process that requires that you think about IT a little bit differently, but one that will become easier as you make progress. The destination, which is to divert more resources to your customers, will start to happen almost right away and pick up speed as you gain experience. We've seen this journey take place a number of times now. I've lived it at Dow Jones and News Corp, the Weather Company, Hess, Qantas, Intuit, Samsung, Hearst, and thousands of others are well on their way. And through these experiences, we've observed a common set of practices that each organization employs along their way. These best practices illustrate the handful of areas that companies invest their energy in that allows them to get the most out of the cloud, which in turn allows them to devote more resources back to their business. So first, they provide executive sponsorship because things are more likely to succeed when the boss supports them. Next, they provide opportunities for their staff to learn. Computer science fundamentals have not changed, just the way you deploy them has. Everyone who wants to learn can transfer their skills to a cloud future and continue to be successful. The cost of experimentation in the cloud pales in comparison to on-premises environments. You'll be able to get to learn to do things more quickly, and you'll be more successful when you view your new initiatives as experiments that will provide valuable insight into how the organization will progress moving forward. Now, this is where I see a lot of customers get stuck. You'll get to this point, you'll begin to realize some of the benefits that cloud brings. But to take it to the next level, it requires the organization to make an investment in itself. Making it real is something that the organization has to do while continuing to invest in these initial three practices. The ecosystem of system integrators, digital consultancies, and IT vendors that are delivering cloud-based solutions has evolved quite a bit in the last several years. Now, whether you'd like to work directly with a partner or indirectly through the AWS Marketplace, there will be plenty of opportunities for you to accelerate your initiatives. They create a cloud center of excellence. We see a lot of customers creating DevOps organizations, but what you call it and where it sits in the organization is far less important than its mission and the support that it receives. Most large organizations have existing IT investments that haven't yet fulfilled their useful life. Setting up a hybrid architecture allows customers to take advantage of their existing assets while still benefiting from what the cloud has to offer. Finally, when the organization fully realizes the benefits that cloud platforms bring, they end up instituting a cloud-first standard. This reverses the burden of proof from why cloud to why not cloud. So let's talk a little bit about each of these. For executive sponsorship, projects in big companies are simply far more likely to succeed when the boss supports them. You certainly don't need to bet the farm in the first few months, but you want to start with some things that are important enough to get the executive team's attention. If you're in a leadership or executive team, help the organization understand the long game and celebrate successes along the way. At Dow Jones, I used every single opportunity I could to reinforce our cloud strategy, whether that was in executive meetings, my quarterly town halls, my blog posts, and every opportunity I got. Making it clear to your team why this is important to your business will be key in winning everybody over. If you're not in a position to make the decision, help the executive team understand. Help them understand that they'll be able to devote more resources to their business. Oftentimes, I've found that it's best to illustrate this with a case study where you've done something small and need additional investment to scale it out. Think about how you can appeal to your stakeholders. Again, this is going to be different depending on the organization, but in my experience, most CEOs will want a competitive advantage and look for ways to keep their resources focused on their business. Most CIOs desperately want to be aligned with the business need, and they want to be able to be as quick and efficient as they can at scale. Most CFOs want to, guess what? Save money. And not only can the cloud save you money, but it can improve cash flows when you don't have to make costly capital investments for each new initiative or expensive refresh cycles. Marketers want to be able to respond quickly to changing events and quickly update their brand and websites and have access to better analytics. Redshift, which is AWS's fastest growing service, has helped many of our customers greatly reduce the complexities with traditional data warehousing. Unilever's marketing team is using AWS to host over 1,700 brand websites, and they now can't understand how they ever lived without being able to update them as quickly as they do today. Security officers want greater visibility into their IT environment and want to be able to have the control and visibility that they can broadly apply to the environment. Using CloudTrail, CloudWatch, AWS Config, and other services will allow our customers to audit and alert on the environment with a single API call. You should be open-minded in investing in your staff's skills. I sometimes hear that organizations don't move ahead because they're worried that they don't have the skills in-house, and I don't think that this is the right way to look at it. Anyone who is willing to learn can participate in helping a company realize benefits. Basic computing fundamentals have not changed. They've only become more nimble and easy to innovate with. Most companies that I talk to that have embraced the idea of giving their staff new skills move a lot faster, and in many cases have used their cloud strategy as a mechanism to retain and attract talent. We offer a wide variety of training courses that are both self-service and instructor-led. On top of this, we now provide several certification programs that give your workforce and company the confidence and peace of mind that you'll be utilizing well-known best practices as you implement your systems. We offer courses that not only go deep in the stack for your technologists, but also help the business understand the benefits of cloud computing so that they can be your partners in the journey. At Dow Jones, we train my entire staff with hands-on training. And while we did hire many new people, much of what we accomplished was because the well-tenured folks became willing to learn and invest in their careers and take advantage of new skills. This chart illustrates the growing trend for job postings that list AWS somewhere in the job description. This is a great indicator, I think, of what the industry is after and the further growth that we can anticipate for the AWS platform. It's good for you as an employer to know that the investments you'll make in your staff will continue to pay off. And as employees, it's good to know that investments in your career will continue to benefit you for many, many years to come. So like all the practices of our journey, the more that you invest in this area, or in this case, the more internal champions you build, the faster your journey will accelerate. So next, you should start to look at each of your projects as an experiment. Now, this is especially important in the beginning, but it's also an opportunity to change the way you think about project portfolio management. Because the investment required to try new things is far less than if you had to procure, manage, and deploy infrastructure, it becomes much more easy to begin projects. Even if some of the things that you try don't work out, you're likely to build some expertise in the organization that you didn't already have, and you'll be able to parlay that into your next projects. As the cloud muscle memory in the organization grows and you build off of each experiment, things will begin to move a lot more quickly and it'll be much easier to change directions. We saw in the IT map that AWS has services that fit into every part of IT. This means that you can start anywhere. I'd encourage you to look at an experiment to start with at a place where you already need to make an investment. Maybe you want to try an SAP implementation to compare the performance and do some cost modeling. Maybe you want to try a website or a mobile app, or maybe you want to try virtual desktops in the cloud to scale out your staff. The possibilities are nearly endless. And because our services are pay-as-you-go, and many of them, on top of that, have free tiers, it's very easy and cost-effective to do. What's important, what I can't stress enough, is that you begin to view these experiments as educational processes that will allow you to focus more of your resources on experimenting rather than the undifferentiated heavy lifting traditionally required for IT projects. Your confidence will grow with each experiment, and you will find that you'll be able to execute much more cost-effectively and quickly over time. So let's take a look at how this journey unfolds as it relates to your existing investments. On one hand, you have your data centers, which is full of servers, storage, networking, and everybody's age-old friend and my personal favorite, the mainframe. We kept a plastic dinosaur on top of ours, and we're just waiting to office space it in the backyard. Working alongside these assets is the staff that bring your business to life. On the other hand, you have the cloud, where you'll be able to experiment with little to no upfront costs and a small team of people. The beauty of this scenario is that since you're starting with a business problem that you had anyway, and you're able to leverage staff that you already have, and since you don't have to procure infrastructure, you're likely to be able to avoid upfront costs and hopefully shorten the debate around whether or not it's worth pursuing. At Dow Jones, our first experiment was a chat application that would allow our customers to communicate between different of our product offerings. It was one of the CEO's pet projects. We needed to move quickly, and we weren't sure if it was something we were going to pursue in the long term. Within a few weeks, we had a working prototype, and within a few weeks after that, we had a highly available production quality application that we began integrating into our products. Most companies I speak to find that it doesn't take very many experiments before they start to realize some of these benefits, which allows them to focus their efforts on which experiments to choose rather than how to proceed with a large portfolio of projects. A lot of our customers leverage third parties to help them on their journey. Sometimes this comes through pre-existing relationships, and sometimes we work with our customers to help them find new partners to tailor to their new needs. There's a rich and growing inventory of consulting partners that are available to help. There's a fast and growing ecosystem of born-in-the-cloud vendors like CloudReach and SecondWatch. And at this point, all the major consulting firms are growing cloud practices and helping their customers understand what cloud means to them. A few months ago, I had the opportunity to meet with all the global sales executives at Capgemini who were all very optimistic about growing their cloud practice, as are many of the other big players that many of you probably already work with, such as Accenture, Wipro, Infosys, and Cognizant. There's a very rich set of third-party tools that are available to help companies manage their IT departments. Similar to our consulting partners, many of these vendors are born in the cloud, but there are also a growing number of traditional IT vendors, Riverbed, Splunk, SAP, and others, who are making big bets and making their cloud solutions, making their solutions available in a cloud-friendly way. We have a fast-growing professional services arm that works with both partners and customers to get you headed in the right direction. Professional services at this point has been through several hundred customer engagements, and the team has refined a reusable set of engagements, which we refer to as perspectives, that we employ with customers to help them on different aspects of their journey. This is something we very often do with partners. Our goal is not to stay for long engagements. It's to make sure that the customer gets headed in the right direction early on. So this practice was not something that was around when I started my journey in 2012, so I had to learn a lot of things the hard way. I'd strongly recommend that everybody consider how this can fit into your longer-term plans. I personally think it can be very helpful in having companies avoid common missteps. So it's my experience that there's a necessary friction that often exists between app teams and infrastructure teams. Oftentimes, the system of checks and balances is healthy, but all too often, it strays over to become somewhat toxic. Because the cloud takes away a lot of the heavy lifting, the lines between app and infrastructure teams become even more blurred. And we find that customers who develop a cloud center of excellence to drive best practices and governance are often able to get more from their cloud investments than those who don't. DevOps is a common name, though having the group is more important than what you call it and where it reports. We have some customers who have one center of excellence for the entire organization, others who have one for each business unit, and everything in between. Regardless of which direction you head in, make sure there's an opportunity to share best practices across the whole organization. At Dow Jones, when we created our DevOps team, we created 3 tenets that we stuck with. The first was that they were to be a customer service-oriented organization, and that was designed to have everybody want to continue to come back and work with them. The second was that they were going to automate everything in order to take advantage of the elasticity properties that cloud offers, and to really start to take advantage of the cost savings that you can get with the cloud. You really need to think about how to automate and reliably reproduce your environment, which will also help you get greater security posturing over time. And the team was meant to be non-blocking. They were to work with each of the different business units, get them set up so that they were able to operate their environment in the cloud independently, and that they could go off and then continue to innovate without needing to come back to DevOps every time they needed something. And as this inventory of skills builds, things will start to move a lot faster, and you'll be able to reuse a lot of the assets and automation scripts and frameworks and best practices that you're building for more and more projects. So what will happen as your center of excellence begins to gain traction? As you gain experience and leverage the pieces of automation that you've built over time, you'll be able to move much more quickly and accomplish much more with less resources. At this point, you'll start to see the true value of the cloud, and in my experience, it doesn't take long before you're able to now devote more of your resources back to the projects that move your business forward. At Dow Jones, this was definitely not something we did overnight. It was a deliberate exercise over time to move people around the department, give them new opportunities with different business units, and an opportunity to work on initiatives that drove revenue. So I'd urge everybody to be very considerate and deliberate when they're looking at total cost of ownership. You need to make sure you're doing an apples-to-apples comparison. Let's say, for example, that you have an application that currently requires 6 servers. The first thing that you ought to do is understand how often does it actually need 6. In my experience, the overwhelming majority of applications I've worked with have been overbuilt to deal with theoretical peak loads that may never occur, or sometimes worse, in the other direction, not built to handle surges when you need it most. Traditionally, this would require that you procure 6 servers, even though you're only using those 6 for a very limited period of time. Using AWS features like auto-scaling, you're only going to use the capacity your app needs when your app needs it. In this case, it leads to a savings of roughly 75% in the number of compute hours needed to run the application. These are things that just simply are not possible in your own data centers. Even with virtualization, you have to be managing spare capacity, and in the best cases, I've seen this to be around 60% utilization, though most of the research I've read suggests that in most facilities, this is even less than 20%. Alert and monitor. There are a number of ways that you can monitor and alert on events inside of your systems and your environments that helps you understand what's going on and respond and troubleshoot. We have CloudWatch and CloudTrail and a number of other services that can help you here. There are also a growing number of solutions that are available in and out of the AWS Marketplace that have helped companies gain transparency into their environments and streamline their operational procedures. Stephen Schmidt, our CISO, is often quoted as saying an API call is just an audit away. For those of you who have been part of an IT audit recently, I hope that you'll agree how attractive that sounds. At this point, at some point, you're going to find that you need your cloud applications to communicate with the environment inside of your data center. AWS's virtual private cloud offers a straightforward way for you to establish connectivity between your on-premises resources and the cloud, and allows you to communicate privately between the two. On top of this, you can leverage a number of different security solutions, like our key management service, Cloud HSM, or bring your own, to make sure that all communication and data is encrypted. This can help you achieve the security posturing you need, knowing that the data center and infrastructure underneath is being secured by a world-class team of security engineers that's constantly being improved to benefit our over 1 million customers. Once this is set up, you'll be able to move even faster. Coupled with the expertise coming from the Cloud Center of Excellence, mission-critical applications that maybe you never thought would be possible to move can begin to go to the cloud, perhaps piece by piece. At the same time, many customers find that they're able to add features they've wanted for years and improve the performance by taking advantage of additional AWS offerings and further enhance their time to market. At Dow Jones, when we got to this point, we had to move 40 or 50 instances that were running in the public internet into our VPC. And in order to do that, you need to relaunch the instances so that they can obtain IP addresses within your own subnet. And we looked at how to do this with taking snapshots of the machine images and the EBS volumes. And I sat with the engineering team as we studied for how we were going to get this done. We went back to our desks, and we finished the entire migration in 45 minutes. So I don't know about you, but to me, that's akin to moving a data center. Granted, 40 or 50 servers might not be the biggest data center in the world, but nonetheless, in my experience, moving a data center at best is going to take a month, probably a few months. Something always goes wrong. We did it with 0 downtime. It was amazing. At this point, you're likely steering away from substantial hardware purchases and maybe even moving big pieces of functionality from your mainframe over to services optimized to run in the cloud. And most importantly, this is where I see companies that get meaningful returns on their investment and start to devote serious resources back to their business. This is also a good time to check out the AWS Marketplace and see if there are other things that can help meet your needs. We had an example where we were migrating a Hong Kong data center to the Tokyo region in AWS, and we had a Radware WAN accelerator and a Cisco load balancer that were critical pieces of the application, which gave us an awful lot of anxiety. And the network engineer on the project went to the AWS Marketplace, found that both Radware and Cisco were leasing the exact same version of that hardware inside of the marketplace, downloaded the configuration files from our hardware, uploaded them to the AMIs that we were now leasing from the marketplace, and our ongoing operations stayed the same. At this point, many companies are finding that they're going to adopt a cloud-first standard. Here's where you reach a tipping point. You've begun to embrace cloud technologies in many parts of the business and tend to become more efficient in operating in the cloud than you do on premises. This is how cloud has become the new normal. These companies are adopting a cloud-first standard that reverses the burden of proof from why cloud to why not cloud. Now you're able to gain tremendous efficiencies across your projects, accomplishing more with less and often eliminating traditional infrastructure procurement cycles. There are a handful of companies who have been through this journey and have made cloud-first declarations for their business. Some of them are listed here. One of my favorite quotes is from Charles Phillips, the CEO of Infor, who also happens to be one of our sponsors next door today, who said, "Friends don't let friends build data centers," which I thought was very apt. Up until this point, most of your initiatives will likely have been driven by business needs. Eventually, as I said, you're going to become much more efficient at operating in the cloud than you are in your on-premises systems. And the migration of data centers will in itself become an attractive business case. First of all, we have 11 regions around the world, which should help you serve your customers regardless of where you are. If you're experimenting with mainly US operated systems, you'll start to experiment with several of our US regions, and you'll get the advantage of being able to diversify your applications across 2 coasts, lowering latency for users and achieving higher availability. Having your applications built in the cloud then allows you to easily expand geographically. I talked about our Hong Kong data center migration. At one point, we also took the Wall Street Journal and the MarketWatch application and just spun them up in minutes in Australia and Asia to have lower latency for our customers there. And as this continues, as you mature through your journey, Condé Nast migrated all of their corporate applications, shut down their primary data center in New Jersey, and saved a significant amount of money in the process. This is also great for companies who acquire technologies or companies. You can use your center of excellence to quickly migrate the IT assets of the acquiree into a common cloud platform where you get far more consistent governance than if trying to take on each company or technology as a capital asset. This works in the other direction as well. A great example is Hess Corporation, who not too long ago decided that they wanted to divest several dozen of their business units. And they created a cloud center of excellence to be able to move those IT assets for each of those business units into the cloud. And the process of handing over the IT assets to the acquiring company was literally a 30-minute meeting handing over of the AWS keys. So there's a good opportunity for everybody to continue to innovate in their business here, and we welcome you to raise your profile by talking about what it is that you're doing in and around the industry. If you have something that you're proud of, let us know, and we'd love to discover ways that we might be able to help you draw some attention to what you're doing and your accomplishments. So I'd like to close with a few reasons that so many companies are choosing AWS. We're trusted by over 1 million organizations and customers, from the largest enterprises to the hottest startups. We have more features and services than any other cloud platform that service every single part of IT. Constantly, we're making improvements. We've nearly doubled the number of releases each of the last 4 years, ending 2014 with over 515 releases. With 11 regions and several availability zones in each, our customers are able to put their applications close to their customers. There's a growing number of features that support extending your existing investments and hybrid architectures. We have a large team of customer support and solutions architects that will work with you to help architect and operate your applications. We're accredited to run workloads that adhere to a number of quality assurance and control frameworks. And this is an area we'll continue to invest heavily in to help you achieve your goals in the cloud. Remember that an audit is just an API call away. And we have thousands of partners in the ecosystem, all of whom are creating solutions that are meant to run in the cloud. So with that, I'd like to thank our partners for today, whom I hope all of you get a chance to visit next door. They're doing some really great stuff with us, and I hope you all have an opportunity to stop by and learn more about what they're doing. And then thank you for your time. Follow me on Twitter.